Hi and welcome to the 4th Fly Fishery Focus programme on Cadence Fly Fishing TV. We're here today at the fantastic new Mills Trout Fishery just to the east of Carlisle on the Cumbria-Northumberland border. It's a compact little fishery, it's full of some really big fish and we're hoping to catch either a big brownie or a big rainbow. Fingers crossed. So let's grab a fishery net and see what we can catch. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start off fishing here. We've got the stream just coming in here and it causes a little channel to come down more from the right hand side of that little dam. And it causes quite a deep channel, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 foot, and sometimes the fish lie in there. There's a little tiny bit of colour from some rain last night, but when that channel comes over, if you are fishing here in the future, concentrate on the inside few feet of this bend here as it goes around. The fish, especially in higher water and more coloured water, will literally be from that far to that far off the bank in a band on this corner. So I think we'll start by fishing near the tree there. If there's nothing happens there, we'll go and fish a little bit further down where there tends to be a few fish and you can get quite a quick fish just off the end of the platform there. Once you've caught 1 or 2 fish, because this is a really shallow kind of area, the fish can spook. So you want to catch 1 or 2 and then move places. So, you know, you could have a good half an hour's fishing on this bend here. There's a fish just come up there. But try and pick 1 or 2 fish out and then move back to the spot up there. One of the things about this place is because of the stream that comes in, it's a really helpful thing in winter when it's cold like today, which is, I think we're at about 2 degrees today with a northeasterly wind kind of thing. The flow of the water means that the lake itself doesn't really freeze because there's always a little flow to it. Now I know when it was down to the -10s and -12s it did freeze up a bit, but on your normal days like a -3 or -4, this water is going to be moving, so you could still probably continue coming to fish. In this area behind us here, there's little channels, so you might not get fish in a shallower bit. There's like little drop-offs. There's 2 little drop-offs at about 1/3 of the way across and 2/3 of the way across. So you ideally want to get your fly into them. But once you come down here, just where these reeds are, there's a little deep trough in there. So what most people do is they come to that platform and cast to the far bank, which is good because there's a nice sandy bank over there. But actually, if you want to drop your fly right under your feet, right next to those reeds, about that far from the reeds, you might get a quick fish. So that's like the shallower end of the fishery, and that's a place that I don't think there's enough people really fish. There's so many big fish get caught from here. But I think most people see that it's quite small, it's quite intricate, you can scare the fish away. If you creep around, it's a really good spot, but the majority of the people will fish over this side here, which is into the main bowl of the lake, which has got, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 platforms. And the good thing is, if you can't cast very far, there's deep water straight under your feet. So, you know, if you're struggling to cast, fish with an indicator and fish it at maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 foot deep, and just fish it like literally 2 or 3 foot from the bank and you'll get some cracking browns. As well as the fishery, the main fishery, which I guess is about 2 acres in size, we've got a bait pond over there, and then above that we've got some holiday wigwams, I don't know what they're called, yurts or something. We'll have a look around them later, but they've got hot tubs and everything like that, so it's a really good place to come, and you can stay in there and have a few hours fishing. Over there we've got the lodge where you check in. It's got a tackle shop, you can hire rods. And then we've also got more holiday homes over there as well. The owners, Dan and Claire, live as well over there. So all in all, it's a cracking little setup in a stunning location. I'm going to start off here on the inside. This fishery is got, like, it's pretty much a dammed off stream. So where I'm fishing here, there's a little bit more water in at the minute because there's been a bit of rain. So it's kind of going around in a bit of a whirlpool, but the bulk of the flow comes down really close to the inside here. So most of the time I'm fishing here, I'm concentrating on the first 10 to 15 foot from the bank. I'm just starting off with an indicator just down the side so I can just, it's like fishing a river really, a very slow moving river, so that float's trotting down the indicator. It's about set at about 2.5 foot. You can normally see fish in here as well. So it's a good place to come if you want to see the fish's reaction to your flies. There's one. That didn't take long. This is an older fish. He took that as soon as it hit. A good size, but he's been in a while. Still powerful. Don't go over there, that's where there's some fish to catch. He's been a big old boy in his day, this one. That's about 4 pound, I'd say. That'll do. When you fish new mills, if you remember that this end's the thinner end, it opens up gently and then you go into the main bowl all the way over there where the deeper water is. If you remember this platform just here, the fish are about quite often 10-12 foot off that platform, so I actually prefer to come further up and cast down to it to avoid spooking them if possible. You know, almost use some of this brush in front of us here as kind of cover, but you can generally pick off 1 or 2 fish quickly. But I think the last thing I'd do is go and stand on the platform. I'd rather fish from further away and drop it into where they quite often are. This must be where the flow just calms down, because it comes down the inside and then will push just gently away. So this must be like the optimum place for them, but there'll be fish all the way up this left hand bank. And if you come here and the water's really cloudy after rain, fish really close in, like literally there, and just fish it. You're only fishing in 2.5 to 3 foot of water. There's a big brownie underneath us there now. Doesn't seem too bothered. because we've had a fish from down there and the fish went back into that area, I'm just going to leave that for a little bit and I'll just have a little cast up here. So try not to hammer the same bit. Oh, that was a bait. Half asleep there. There we go. This is that's a good one. Really nice clean little fish, this one. I don't know if the camera picked it up, but that one took it, and then I think I gave it a little touch and it came and took it again. We're on a black fly here, a black slushy with a tungsten bead. Actually, for this place, that's a quite an unusual fish because it's quite small. Most of the fish in here are good size, but he's really welcome and a nice bright little fish. Great. What we've got off from this tree here, it's kind of shallow for about 6 or 7 foot, and then it drops into a channel that's maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 foot deep, and then that channel rises at about halfway, it comes back up. So you've got a channel and it goes diagonally across. When you're up by this tree you can see it, and I've got a brownie just there. I'm going to make this go a bit deeper. I think it's the big fella that's been moving around, but they just sit in that channel facing upstream. Where is it? Not far enough. See, now that fly's coming towards us, I've got to keep the line moving. I've got to keep the line moving because it'll just build up slack. So I'm pulling this at the pace of the flow. It's a bit like some of the stuff at Sharpley where I've got an indicator on, but I'm actually just watching the fly. So you can almost do this with like straight line. Just watching the reaction of a few of the fish there. When the fly is static, their interest just dampens down. You can see them physically calm down. It's normally the other way in a flat calm, but if there's a fish coming out of look there. As soon as I move that fly, right on cue on it. That's another one of the small bright fish, a gorgeous fish. There we go. He's a lovely fish. Off he goes. Okay, so we'll bear that in mind. Normally in a flat calm, I'm expecting to be more bothered about flies, a bit static maybe. But the last 2 or 3 bits of interest have been immediately after pulling it, so we'll maybe try a hover line and a lure pulled back at a medium kind of pace in a bit. For now we'll stick with this if we're catching fish. You normally get the takes, like just as the flies settle at the depth it's fishing at. But now, strip it like a lure, lift it up. There's a fish just coming out of luck. But its interest dampened as soon as it stopped. So, shock tactics. I'll try them with something else. All the flies that I tie are weighted exactly so that they fish with this indicator properly, so it dots it down just right. So we've had a black one on, and now we'll try the old favourite slush blue cheese. It takes a little while to get these flies waterlogged, about 30 seconds, and then that'll dot the indicator down nicely. So I start off by throwing it, failed, into the water, and that is almost floating straight away, but now it's going down. Still take a little while to get waterlogged. All the time I'm fishing here, I'm aware that I'm going to fish back where I got that first fish. So just giving that a little bit of a breather now, because the fish quickly wise up. Oh, there's that big boy. He's moved. Oh man. Get the line off out here before casting. Did I say that was a brownie? Because it's a rainbow. There you go. It's a big rainbow. It's a smasher. Oh yes! Oh man, that's massive. Okay, well that's the 4th of the day, but this is by far the biggest. I thought it was a brown trout when it was underneath this, but it's turned out to be a monster rainbow. I've weighed it in the net and it's 10 3/4 pound. So I hope the net's less than 3/4 pound, which I don't think it is. Absolutely over the moon with that one. What a place, huh? Brilliant. There we go. Right, well that fish was 10 3/4 in the net. I have a nasty feeling this is going to be over 3/4 pound and stop it being a double, but the net's a pound, so the fish wasn't a double. 9 3/4, unlucky. This is a bit deeper down here, so there's quite a lot of browns feed down these edges here. They nose around in the mud for bloodworms and things, but we'll see if we can get one out of here. That's a nice bright fish as well. That one's taking, the wind's just starting to get up. Just starting to move the air a bit, and that one took straight away. Okay, so the indicator's getting an odd nudge or two now, but I'm not convinced this is the best method at the minute. I just get the feeling from what was found out earlier on, the fish wanting to chase. I think I'm going to put now we're in wider open, deeper water, I'm going to put a hover line on, and that's going to be on the Cadence 9'6", 7 weight. So that's ideally matched for that. You could possibly go down to the 6 weight as well for that line. The airflow hover 0.5 inches a second. So I'm going to fish that with a 14-foot leader and probably try a black cat's whisker. Well, third cast that on the cat's whisker. I think a lot of people would call it a black frit. Let that one go down before starting to retrieve. Maybe it's just going above the fish to start with. So let that sink. It's probably still only about 2 or 3 foot down when it took. There we go. Well, that was a quick fish on the cat's whisker, allowed to sing. There's 3, 4 other people fishing here today, and they're catching a few fish as well. So fingers crossed we may get a couple more. That one there'd come up and tried to take it on the hang, missed it, let the fly drop down, lost sight of the fly, and then just saw the line shoot away. So even if they take on the hang and you miss them, let the fly drop down still. Like peas in a pod, these things. Well, it might well be the 3rd of March. It might well be just above freezing with a northerly stroke easterly wind. but there's one or two fish just started to come up over under the trees over there. And whenever that happens, I always put a little beetle on. There's not many. We'll probably just give it 5 minutes, but you've got to take a chance at fishing the dry fly, haven't you? I've got the 5-weight, the Cadence 10-foot 5-weight rod set up with about a 14-foot leader, and I think this is a size 16 beetle, so who knows, we might get a one. Let's give it a try. So I'm going to be aiming for over by the trees there. Got to cast back to front because the wind's blowing the wrong way. Gorgeous. That's landed. Now normally in the summer, that's a really good spot because the fish lie under there and they know there's going to be stuff drops off it. And if you put something that plops under a tree at this fishery, they absolutely hammer it. So that bit over there, and then also up at the top where the stream comes in. In the whole range of rods that we've got, I think the 10-foot 5-weight's my favourite. It's perfect on smaller fisheries like this. It's also good on reservoirs for dry flies as well. No, there's no interest there. If I was going to get a reaction, I would have expected it immediately. Try one up the wind there. Actually, it's probably this breeze getting up since when we started with a dry fly, the breeze has got up 5 or 10 miles an hour, so that's actually stopped them rising. There was some little midges coming off before. So I think what we'll do is, we'll maybe try pulling a snake through here in case there's any big browns, because the big browns do like to chase a snake. We'll try that for a few casts, and if it calms down, we'll put the dry fly on again. Slightly better fish. It's not massive, but it's another gorgeous fish. Just in the last few minutes, it's noticeable how the fish have become more active. You can see them moving around quicker. There just seems to be more aggression. I've put the fly in 3 times and there's 3 fish come to look at it on each occasion. The fly's barely moving, but I don't know what's set them away, but they're really on one at the minute, so I'll put a snake on and we'll see if we can get a brownie. Don't need that much line out. So I have here the 9-foot 6/7 weight once again, and I think the leader's about 12 or 13 foot, and we've got the hover line on. When you're fishing at new mills, There's no need to bring any line quicker than a die 3, and quite honestly a die 3 you're probably only using the main ball. But a hover 0.5 inches a second is brilliant for buzzers here. You could probably go down, I would probably bring a 1.5 inches per second intermediate as my fastest sinker to fish here. Gorgeous fish that. Now we're going to have a look at some of the flies that we use here at New Mills. I think if you speak to the guy who owns it, Daniel, he would always tell you to use a blue flash damsel, so like an olive marabou tail, and a blue flash material. The material in this is up Avon. I've actually tied a little bit of biscuit fritz in behind that. I don't know why, I think there was just a bit left lying on the desk, so I used it. It's got a silver bead on the head, and that one definitely works here. So I suppose if you just have one fly that you like to use for a pulling lures and what have you, it's not really a damsel nymph, it's a green lure effectively, but it's a really good fly here. So don't be without a blue flash damsel. So that there, just pull the tail down. And when I'm tying like the marabou tails on flies, I build up a little bump at the end, so then you can nip the tail down onto that bump, and it stops the tail wrap so much. It will still tail wrap, but it's not as bad. And I also bring the thread round and tuck it underneath the marabou as well, and do 2 of those. And like with these flies here, there's been no tail wrap whatsoever, so that's been good. Sticking with the bigger stuff, we've got here, this is the Apps pulling worm. So this has got the Gutterman beads on. I think the pulling worm's supposed to have 8 legs, this one's only got 6. But yeah, all the apps family, the basic 4-legged version with the glow bright, the pulling worms, they all work here as well. So definitely have a couple of apps in your boxes. I'll probably prefer pink, but the standard red or olive apps will all do well here. The one that's been really working well for us today has been this one here, the black cat's whisker, or cat's whisker, like a black frit. This really has done well today, to the point that it's actually starting to... I fished this earlier on, and I was getting fish after fish with it, and then put a black snake on and they wouldn't even look at it in the same area, and I've done that twice today. So there's maybe something significant in that. It's got like bead chains on the front end there. I get these from Funky Fly Tying and just figure of 8 those on and put them on the underside of the hook. It's a dead basic dressing. You've got the marabou wing on the top and a marabou wing on the tail, once again with the little bump and the marabou tied into that. I think that probably the secret is the body. So I'll just wet my fingers here. And this is like this, it's a really good fritz material, and it's always done me well. So I think it's a lure flash fritz. It's not widely available, I don't think, now, because when it did become available, I know I bought a load of them in one go. But that's really done well today, the black cat's whisker. This here is my old favourite for under the indicator, which is the blue cheese FNF slush. It's tied on a jig hook. You can see on the yellow background it's a bizarre colour even when it's dry, but you get that wet, that tail comes alive and it's really flicking. It's a shame we cannot really show you the fly in the water properly. The camera's not going to pick it up, but it really, that tail, it just looks so boring on there. That material doesn't look like anything but wetted, and it just comes absolutely alive. This one's tied on a jig hook, and I've got a 3.5mm tungsten bead. This one's pink. I find that this one's just gone best with this as the contrast to that colour. We have the pink tungsten bead, and then in behind it I've got a luminous green collar. So I don't know if the camera can pick that up absolutely perfectly, but just those two little contrasts at the head, I think they really help as well. And that luminous thread is tied underneath as well, so the body, the material is wrapped around luminous thread. So when you pack down on it with water, there's a little glow underneath, and I think that really works well. So I would use that here all the time. Before, I was using a black version of this, and I was drifting it past fish that weren't even looking. And then I changed it and suddenly got that big fish, and that went for it 3 times. Previously, it had gone past it about 4 times and it hadn't even turned a head. So changing fly and changing colour does make a difference. Moving on to the more natural stuff now. Maybe not so much today because we're on the 3rd of March and it's freezing cold. But this did work the other day when I was having a little try here. They went right off the brighter stuff, as fish quite often do. And I started using this one and got a really good response immediately. The difference with this one being, I'm just going to put it up there because it's hidden behind the damsel, is that this is just a rabbit's fur nymph. It's been chewed to buggery because it should have 3 pheasant tails in there. There's lead wire underneath, there's pheasant tail there, and then you can see underneath they were supposed to be wing cases that have been brushed back. There's just all manner of teeth have picked this thing apart, but it's still really working. The difference was the other day was I was using brighter coloured lures and they were getting a response instantly. The fish were coming, they were having a look at them, they weren't necessarily taking them, but they were interested, and then after the 2nd or 3rd cast they just backed off completely. And that's a common occurrence when you're fishing on small waters. They get quite used to seeing things. So what I was doing was changing flies, getting an instant response, and then all of a sudden I put this on and the fish kept coming and they kept coming and they kept coming and looking at it. So like obviously changing to a more subdued natural fly made a difference, but they really seem to like that one. It's tied on a, I think it's a size 12 long shank Drennan nymph hook from ages ago, but that really made a difference the other day. Going on to the more natural stuff, we have tried with the beetle, this one here, we have tried with it today. There was fish coming up for 5 minutes, but as soon as I put it on, the wind got up and the fish disappeared again. But if you have to come here with one dry fly in the summer or in the warmer months, make sure it's a beetle if you just have one choice. This here is a size 20, which is the one that I would normally choose, but just maybe if you can see that better, it's a size 16 on there. We covered it in the chatting video, and it's a very straightforward pattern. It's so easy to tie. Even if you don't tie flies, you can make these. It's literally just tie the foam down, pull it back, and then you put some Spectra double underneath and then pull the foam over the top and tie it in. It's so straightforward. You don't even need to pick the dubbing out. It just sits perfectly as it is. Generally, if the foam's about 4 to 5 mil wide, if the foam is about 4 to 5 mil wide, you've got it about right for a size 20 hook, maybe 5 to 6 mil for a size 16 hook. We've got here just a couple of fairly standard buzzers, nothing special. I think maybe this is a size 12 and that's a size 16-ish. Both with little small tungsten beads in the head, a pearly one and a nickel black one. The pearly one I will use for like visuals, so even with a size 16 you can sometimes still see a pearly or a silver bead in the side if you're watching it, whereas the black nickel not so much. But yeah, both of those buzzers on a point on a long leader, 15 or 16 foot, and when you're fishing them on such a long leader, just give them time, let them sink, especially on a midge tip, and just really slowly figure of 8. If you're just keeping that line straight, that's good enough. It doesn't need to be any faster. In fact, if you go any faster, then you're going too fast. Buzzers, you always want to fish slowly as a rule. Just finally, we have this here, which is just some black thread and a little rib. And the reason I did that was because the last couple of times we've been here, there's been brown trout have been nosing in the mud to the point of being in like a frenzy almost. These are like old stages that have been in the lake for a few years, so they know the time of day. And I managed to catch one a couple of weeks ago, and it had these little black things all around its mouth, which I'm guessing is what they were burrowing around with. And when I looked, it was like a bloodworm, but I was expecting it to be red, but the bloodworm were like quite long things. I don't think they were leeches. I'm going to say bloodworm, but they were about that size and just quite rigid. So I thought I'd maybe give that one a try later on if we see those brownies mucking about, because they were definitely feeding on something very similar. So there we go, there's a good roundup of the flies. Today, that's definitely been the award winner, but overall, I would say that one and that one, if you're pulling or indicator fishing, and definitely bring a beetle. Now we're going to go through the basic setup that I've got here. You know, this can apply to all fisheries wherever you are, it's not New Mills specific, but like for the dry fly here, I've got the Cadence 10-foot 5-weight. I've got the Cadence 5-weight floating line, and on the end of that I have a very small braided loop. You can get bigger braided loops. I would certainly recommend going for the smallest braided loop you can get onto your line, and that makes a difference. Everything's just much more neat and tidy, doesn't splash down as much, and they really can make a difference, especially some of the braided loops you can get like luminous green colours. Anyway, from that I will have about 14 foot in this case, 14 foot of fluorocarbon, and I use Edge fluorocarbon, which is 100% fluorocarbon. It's about half the price of the more expensive stuff, but it's really good quality. When I'm using the dry fly, in this case today, I've got the 0.20mm, which is 5.3 pound. I will go down in the summer onto the smaller breaking strains, because with a 5-weight rod or a 4-weight rod you can cushion it quite easily and go down to the thinner lines that will give you better presentation and give you more takes. On the other rods, like for the indicators, for indicator line, I'll nearly always use 0.23mm line, which is 6.6 pound. That is just a solid all-rounder. I don't change that at all for the indicator, so I'll always use that. When you're fishing with the big snakes and the big nasty browns come and hit the snakes hard, you probably want a bit more protection, so this is 9.6 pound or 0.30mm breaking strain. A thing to note as well with the breaking strains of these fluorocarbons is that this is actually the knot strength. 9.6 is the knot strength. It's not the actual line breaking strain. So the actual conventional breaking strain, as you may know it, will probably be more like 10.5 pound breaking strain. That's the weakest point of the line, so it's quoted as 9.6 pound. Now we're going to go through the rods that I've been using here at New Mills today. The first one, and the rod that I'll have set up here nearly every day that I'm here, is the Cadence 10-foot 5-weight. It covers a lot of eventualities: buzzer fishing, dry fly fishing. I'll even use the indicator on this, but because it's a 5-weight, and even though there's big fish in here, it's not a massive fishery, so they can't run miles and miles and miles if you get a really powerful one. So I will always have a 10-foot 5-weight or a Cadence 10-foot 6-weight as my main rod. Because I've got a sinking line on, and this one here is the Airflow Hover 0.5 inches per second, I'm using a 7-weight, and in this case it's a 9'6" 7-weight. The advantage of the 9'6" over the 10-foot is probably it casts better on a windy day, and it's a bit lighter in weight. So if you're going to be fishing windy places or rod weight matters, go for the 9'6" inch. Now moving on to the reels, we've got the standard Cadence issue. We've got the 5.6 reel and the 7.8 reel on both these setups. I think this is the 6-weight rod, so that's a 5.6 reel, which is that one there. Each of these reels comes with a free spare spool whenever you order it, and they're absolutely gorgeous reels. The drag system on them is unreal. bar stock aluminium. They're as good as it gets. So yeah, with a 5 weight and the 6 weight rod, go with the 5 and 6 weight reel. And then with the 6 and 7 weights, like the most standard one in stillwater trout fishing, if you go with a 7/8 reel, that'll be perfect. One of the things that's really helped us out today catching fish, because a lot of these fish have been physically sighted taking the fly, not feeling them, you can't feel them, is these things here. Now, most fishermen who've fished a long time will already know, but Polaroid lenses make a massive difference. They take the glare off the surface of the water and they enable you to look under the surface and see fish that you wouldn't otherwise see. Even the cameraman, who's been a fisherman for over 20 years, was asking how you could see the fish under the surface, and he put these on and he couldn't believe the difference because he hasn't worn them for such a long time. As well as helping you catch an awful lot more fish, Polaroid sunglasses will stop hooks going into your eyes, and in fly fishing that's a real issue, so always wear some glasses. Well, there we go. That's the last fish of the session. I think we've nearly had 15 or 16, including 2 fish around about double figures, probably both not quite double figures, but that's a lovely fish, about 2–2.5 pound to finish off with. And we'll just get him back. Despite the fact we've had a fantastic day here, the one thing that's been missing in the jigsaw has been a big brown trout. I was here a few days ago practicing for this video to see what flies were working, and I was able to catch this fish here, which I took a video of. Fair enough, it wasn't caught today, but what a fantastic fish. It's a brown trout, about 7 or 8 pound, in immaculate condition. Thanks very much for watching. Please hit subscribe and we'll see you again on the next programme.